So we're starting here at the Village Web Company, back running Flourishing Friday. And today, as you'll know, the topic's all about digital tools and skills. We've got a varied panel here, different backgrounds, different perspectives in this world. And we're hoping that we'll glean all sorts really from people's take, people's specialisms, different tips, and I guess hear more about how we can all get better and smarter at using digital technologies in different ways. So I think rather than me prattle on about it, we're best to hear from our panel. I'm afraid it's a pass the parcel kind of scenario where we hand this around, but it'd be great from our different panel members that we've got. We've got Claire Worthington from Village Web Company. We've got Rachele Everoa from a range of places, Old Abbey Taphouse, PlaceCal, range of other things that she'll explain. We've got Shelley Metcalfe here, who also, she works for Flourish as our program and operations manager, but as I wouldn't even say in a previous life, because it's still all there, has run her own sort of digital skills and development organisation she'll say more about. And I'm sorry, I don't know your name. I won't say.
Louise Ball.
Louise Ball from 11 Accounts, who's going to talk from a different perspective on how to use sort of digital to aid with finances and bookkeeping and other stuff. So hopefully we'll get a good mixed picture really. I might go down to Claire and then come back this way to just perhaps tell us a bit about your experience and background in this area. How did you get into working in this world, and just tell us a bit about what you do.
Okay, so I'm Claire Worthington. I'm trying to kind of look at the screen and look over the screen. So I now run the Village Web Company CIC. So I build websites and I teach people how to do things with computers. So sometimes that's, as a small business, you might want to set up a Facebook group, or you might want to do work on your own website, or you might have a website that you don't know what to do with, or it might be, I've never used a computer before and actually it's time I did, or I need to do it for some reason. So the reason that I don't just build websites, the reason that I do the digital skills stuff is mainly because I kept going on Twitter and ranting. Yeah, I do that a lot. So yeah. Yeah, so on Twitter as Worthy on the Web, I kept kind of going on there and ranting about digital exclusion. So for people who don't really know what that means, I'll use that phrase a lot and people are like, I don't really know what you're on about. There's a lot of things that we used to do either on paper or in person or over the phone that are now online processes, which technically is fine. So if you think about things like having a wheelie bin, which is one of the many things I started ranting about, if you live in Stockport and someone nicks your blue bin, which happens from time to time, the process now is you go on the council's website and you request a new bin. So that for me, with a Mac and broadband and using computers since I was in my teens, it's really not that big an ask. But if you think about someone who's maybe in their 70s, who didn't have computers in school when they were younger, maybe hasn't done computing as a hobby, might not have a laptop, might have a laptop but doesn't have Wi-Fi at home, all of a sudden that, oh, you just go online. It's not just. And I kept ranting about the fact. So in essence, I can't stop them forcing you online, but I can show you what to do when you get there. So the digital skills stuff really came from that, because as much as I love ranting on Twitter, it's great, but you need to do something with it. So me doing that is the same.
Knowing you well, didn't you have like a previous career in the digital world? Am I dreaming?
No. Well, I used to use computers like as part of my job.
Yeah.
So we had computers at school and I did do a little bit, but I wasn't very good at it and I left school, completely forgot all about it. Then this shop that we're in today, this used to be my children's wear shop. So when I opened, took me a big bag of money, took redundancy, started my own business, I was going to be like a children's clothing wear tycoon, as we all were. So this is like 2007. And then when I closed the shop in 2009, because I had the end of a long lease, and 2009 was not a good year. So I kind of thought, oh, I'll just sell things online. And then I looked at my website, discovered that the website was like not very good, and went back to uni to learn how to rebuild my own website. And obviously once I learned to code, it was like, why do I want to stand in the shop by myself all day when I can just do this? So that's when I moved into sort of doing digital stuff. But back when I used to work in personnel for Royal Mail, we used to have actual filing cabinets with personnel documents in. I went on maternity leave and came back, the filing cabinets had gone and we all had computers on our desks, which was fine. Because they taught me what to do. They trained me. They said, right, to do this, you now do that. And then you press this button. Then I went on maternity leave the second time, a couple of years later, came back and they were on Windows. So, yeah. So although I'd used computers before, I'd never used a mouse. So I was the person picking the mouse up and waving it about, going, it's not working. And then everyone was laughing at me, but why would I know how to do that? And I think because I haven't always been a techie, I kind of, yeah, I understand what it's like to not be able to do it. So little things like the car park's changing and, oh, it's fine, you just use an app. I can straight away, I can envisage people in this village, if they did that with the car park here, who were going to struggle. Yeah, but who are going to struggle with downloading an app. And it's not just that, but having the privilege of having that kind of phone, having enough space on your phone to do that, having data, so when you're in the middle of nowhere and you're not slurping Wi-Fi, where are you getting the data to download that app from? If you've got like an iPhone 4 and 8 gigs of data on it in total, what app are you taking off to put the parking app on? All of that, that's all digital exclusion. So that's what I do.
We'll come back to some of those sort of topics shortly. So I will ask you to pass it along to Louise. And tell us more, Louise. I guess, how did you get into the digital thinking?
So I'm a bookkeeper. I run 11 account services. We're a small bookkeeping practice in Heaton Chapel. I'm relatively new to the world of bookkeeping. I set up about 3 years ago. Prior to that, I was a nurse. Maternity leave again, kickstarts everyone's brain to start thinking, decide I needed a career change. I went to think about something that suited me, what I was good at and how I could help people still. And that's how I became a bookkeeper. So the difference experience I've got, I'm not from a financial background or corporate background. I've set up a business on my own from scratch. You know, I've had to navigate the world, find the skills to get on social media to promote myself, set up websites, set up, online banking. And then obviously in my bookkeeping job, I'm using digital apps all the time. There's no red ledgers. Someone likes a red ledger. There's no red ledgers and bags of receipts anymore. It's all very digital. And I'm finding I've got lots of different clients from lots of different walks of life and different businesses. And it's finding a lot of people are told to set up processes. This is how we're going to work. This is how you're going to do it. And I don't like to do that. I like to find out a way to make it easy for that person. If it is dropping off a bag of receipts or if it is getting everything digital. So there's lots of different processes to follow, lots of training that's needed. A lot of people are very anxious about digitizing things. A lot of people are anxious about their numbers. And I really enjoy helping people take that stress off them.
Well, we'll come back to some of the things that you're using and tips around that shortly.
Definitely.
Shelley, tell us more about your sort of digital life and journey.
Hello, I'm Shelley. So yeah, my first job when I left university, I didn't have a computer or anything. If we wanted to communicate with another department, we had to write a memo on a piece of paper, put it in an envelope, write their name on it, put it in the internal post, and 1 or 2 days later it would get delivered to them.
Wow. In fact, I want to go back to those.
Simpler times, but that just shows my age. But then I think my second or third job, I did have a computer and I had to learn how to use email. I was the age of 22, I didn't know how to use email because it was quite a new thing. So you just had to learn. So like everyone else, I started knowing nothing. And I worked in media and marketing back then, and nothing was really digital. But as the years went by, more things came up that were digital and you just had to learn on the job. And I'd say that most of my learning has been self-taught. So I've done the odd training course, but on jobs, you just gain experience. So yeah, then I became a digital marketeer, did that for a few years for mainly purpose-led organisations. And then a few years ago, I set up an organisation called the Digital Life Skills Company. And we taught children and young people mainly, but also some adults too, what we called information literacy. So how it's how to get good information from the internet. Because there's loads of good information on the internet. And we used to have this mantra which was, with the right skills, you can find out anything online, which is kind of the opposite of what they get taught in school sometimes, which is often don't go online, it's full of lies. And so we teach those skills, you know, with the right search skills, you can kind of teach yourself almost anything. So that's what I was doing until I started working at Flourish. Unfortunately, working in education, we had to shut that down over COVID, but the principles that we used to teach are very much part of my daily life. So I'd say every week I'm learning something new digitally, and I can generally find the information I want, or teach my kids how to find the information they want, even if we haven't been on like an official training course. And now, yeah, with Flourish, yeah, I'm trying to sort out all our digital systems and get us fully online.
Get us off those Excel spreadsheets and into other stuff.
Yeah, as the team grows. Yeah.
Absolutely, fantastic. Well, last but not least, you've got an eclectic mix, I would imagine, of digital knowledge and skills. So do you want to just say a bit about how you've linked into all of this and how you use digital tech in different ways?
Yeah. I think the first thing that interested me was my mum had a listings magazine when I was younger. She put her heart and soul into it, and it did really well at one point. And then they got a website designer, and they spent a lot of money building a website, and then he held them hostage for 3 years and killed the business. And that was devastating to see my mum's business that she put her heart and soul into fall apart. And it was around the time that Facebook events and listings came, and if they got that website right, my mum would have been laughing all the way to the bank. So I think that was the first time I realised that knowing how to do things yourself is really important, otherwise you get held hostage. And then my background is in music originally, so I started putting on gigs and basically made my career out of Facebook events, which I've got a love-hate thing for. But weirdly, I started putting on gigs when I was 21, I'm 35 now. Nothing has come along to replace Facebook events in our ecosystem. So that's one of the reasons I've signed up with PlaceCal, because PlaceCal is this community tech project calendar where we can link to your Google Calendar. So everyone gets to keep hold of their data. I'll tell you a bit more about that later. And then the other thing is I am very DIY. I've never had any money, so I've always had to do everything myself. So when we set up, me and Craig set up an events company and started putting on club nights. And I got really annoyed because Skiddle takes all your customer data and it takes £1 from each ticket. And if you think about the margins on the tickets, that £1 is actually quite a lot, and that data is quite useful. So I looked into building a website. I can't code, but I watched all these videos and I managed to hack a Weebly website to look like it was a business website, even though it wasn't. I was paying for free. And we sold loads of tickets through there and we made loads of money. And unbeknownst to me, we sold £30,000 of tickets in 1 year through my website, which got flagged by Weebly. And they asked me to come and talk on their business panel about how I use their business Weebly. And I got there and I was like, I don't know, I've hacked it, so it's free. And if you can't notice that. So my advice is like, you can actually teach yourself anything in this day and age. When I was really on it with Facebook, you can read a blog each week and it tell you the algorithms and this stuff. It's just really boring. And I also would say, don't get worried about your views and your counts, because actually with the pub, I can get like, I think we went viral on TikTok the other day, but it doesn't actually turn into customers. No. And actually it's way better to have a small Facebook page with like 10 people engaging regularly than a massive Facebook page with loads of people engaging, but it doesn't actually translate to customers. And I think people get a bit lost in the social media world, but it's quite fake. And actually these influencers aren't making loads of money. They're doing other things in the background. So I think people get lost down this having views.
Holes with it all. And I know you've done an awful lot of community training pre-COVID, through COVID. You know, you've done all sorts. You've set up community radio stations. You've got different organisations where people are now buying their food through the various apps to do all of that.
I think my tip is to use what is free. So I designed the pub so I can do it all on my phone. And there's some really amazing apps out there if you just spend a little time researching, but I really recommend When I Work for Rotas, and it can update the rota in seconds and tell everybody, and it saves you loads of time. Google Docs and Forms is so useful, and they've got loads of templates. And I hate spreadsheets, I'm terrible at spreadsheets, but you can use Google Docs in a really good way to capture data for your social enterprise to then give to funders. Or in lockdown, I built Taphouse TV dinners, and I wanted to make it, my thing is not letting anyone feel any shame. And feeling like they have choices. So the way we design TV dinners, people get sent out a text, and then they can choose what they want each week. And I also try and design projects so I could step away and anyone could just take them over. And so loads of it is a bit fiddly to begin with, but once you've got the system set up properly and you just test it out, I think loads of people build things and don't test it in real life, and then that's when the problems happen.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Gone off
and
tangent.
no, you haven't at all, because actually I was going to jump to a different question, but you've started with the one that's in the list here that's about using apps and, you know, how to get started and how to keep things simple. So we might get people's takes on that. Obviously, everybody's always coming at this from a different level of knowledge around digital skills, a different level of access to tech and bandwidth and everything else. But we're all grappling with it, you know, we're all having to come up with options. So I'll come to you in a minute and just have a think about, you know, if we're trying to keep things simple in trying to navigate, what are these apps? Perhaps where should people start, do you think, when they are looking at what to use and how to keep things simple? You started with some good examples there around Google and other things we might come back to. I was just thinking as well about, my brain's gone because it's Friday in the week, but I think just the wealth of information that's out there, and just trying to navigate what works for you can be tricky. I wonder if there's anything else you want to sort of add on that. You know,
InShot, your phone's now so good for videos, and like a lot of people need to document what they're doing for funders, and the video is the easiest way. And there's an app called InShot that you can download on your phone. It's free to use, well, it's $2.89 for a month, and it's the easiest video editor ever. It's like drag and drop, and you can just bash together a video. If you're filming whilst you're doing a session, you can bash together a video within an hour afterwards.
What we might do,
Sorry, is that InShot?
Yeah. InShot, so shot. Yeah.
What was the other one you mentioned before?
When I work is a rota, and it's free to use if you're doing it weekly. Square is what I use for the till systems, and they've been quite good, and you can use it on your phone, and they don't have any sign-up costs. And I can monitor the pub on my phone through what's happening. What else do I use?
when you say monitor, do you mean like sales and things? Or
Yeah, sales is really good. Yeah, I can do sales. I can also, like, when you run a business, you get a sense of what's happening through the sales, and if someone's giving too many refunds, or I'm not spying on the staff, but you just like
just checking things out. Well, what we could do, it's just coming to mind through the event, is come up with a bit of a table as to what apps and things people use, what they're for, whether there's a cost, and then we can just stick something up on the walls that we've got a kind of table as to kind of what some of these things are. But
and then bookkeeping, like we had to swap a lot of times, but now we're with Xero, and then Xero keeps changing what systems you link to. So now we're with Xero, and Dex seems to be the best one. But that makes such a big difference if you get your bookkeeping software good from the go, and make sure your bookkeeper stays with that system, because my bookkeeper likes to change every year and change systems.
It's some good.
Weebly as well for websites. I signed up years ago, so I got this free package, but I'm sure you'll do a much better job. But if you need to,
Weebly is really easy to use, because I inherited a client where he had a Weebly website and he built it himself, and he did everything he wanted, and then no, you need to be on WordPress. Now, I love WordPress. WordPress is amazing. But the guy who built his website, he was sort of talked into upgrading something that he was perfectly happy with to something else, because it had all of this extra functionality that he could use, that he didn't want or need and wasn't using. He paid this guy to rebuild his website, and then he wouldn't show him how to use the admin panel. So then he ended up paying me to teach him how to use a website he'd already paid somebody else for. It's like, it's all I know, but he loved Weebly, and Weebly was really, really useful for him.
I just reckon, like, if you have a play around with Weebly, then when you go and approach someone to build your website, you'll have a much better idea. And there are some sharks out there in the website business, and they will make it out that your website is terrible, and then like come and try and do a re-thing, and then nothing will ever happen. So choosing a good person.
So what we'll be doing this afternoon is all of us are going to collectively talk through the apps that we found useful and come up with a document which we'll share afterwards. So we'll say, because you'll leave today with a whole list of fantastic platforms, apps, shortcuts, which you might not know what to do with immediately. So if we give it to you as a document, you can take it away and use it when is relevant. And in terms of your question as to where to start and keep it simple, It's really important to think about what's the problem you're solving, because obviously loads of people have got different experiences and you can't adopt everything instantaneously. So it's thinking about, do I really need a project management tool right now? Is it solving a problem for me? And if it's not, don't look at it yet. Do I need a newsletter? What problem is it solving? And that can focus your thinking as to which things you should start looking at first. So if you decide you do need a thing, I'd say the next step is to go to some people who are a little bit further down the road than you and ask them what they use. So find out what's been useful. So people like Rachel, what's worked for them when building a website, what to look out for. So, you know, make sure you've got a website that you can update yourself rather than having to have a technical person updating it. So you can learn from their successes, but also their mistakes. But somebody, that's what I find really useful about communities like this, somebody who's just a bit further along with that particular thing. It could be a database, you know, whatever the thing you've decided you need is, ask the community, and that can shortcut. And also if it's a venture a bit like yours that has some similarities, then, you know, for instance, if it's a venue, there'll be specific things that you need, or if it's a social venture, there might be other aspects, and they can quickly shortcut you to where you could be looking for that specific thing, but be focused about what it is that you need
And I
to
think
do
having
next.
that in mind this afternoon, and what is it that you need, or what problem you're trying to solve, either within your business right now or within your community, and that will help focus the conversations in the directory that we put together this afternoon. Last but not least, obviously Rachel's put some good thoughts there around her experience of using apps and stuff for the finances, but given that's your world, do you want to just, you know, in terms of all the apps that are out there, we can come to it in a little bit more depth this afternoon, but you know, what's your take on when people want to get started and keep things simple, from a bookkeeping point of view? What are your thoughts on that?
So the first thing I always suggest to somebody is get a separate bank account. It's the simplest thing for bookkeeping because your ins and outs are all going to be there for you. You know, if you get left behind with your bookkeeping, you can just print out a statement and work from that. It's the basic form.
Your accountant will love you for that. And
Yes.
if you're doing digital banking, which we encourage, you can just pull off a CSV report. I think we talked about this last time. It's an Excel spreadsheet and it's all sitting there that you can play with. You get a PDF version that's static or a CSV that you can then manipulate all your accounting and bookkeeping.
Yeah, and again, you know, being able to manage it from your phone is a lot easier for a lot of people. You don't always find that time to sort of go and sit at a desk and work through your accounts. So again, you know, I think that's a really good point. People always think business bank accounts going to cost me a fortune. That's not true anymore. There are some really good free banks. Starling is a sort of a top recommendation.
Big fan of
not
Starling.
if you're trying to go for lottery money. They won't accept
No, there
Starling.
are issues with sort of certain businesses, and at first they used to be really good at offering accounts to everybody, and I know they have tightened down a bit on that, unfortunately. And there's another one called Metal, which is METTLE, which is backed by NatWest. Again, I don't know how they feel so much
I know
on
when we've been
the
talking to people about this, it's use a high street bank where impossible because larger funders and mainstream funders don't like these small bank accounts because they want to see exactly who's managing this thing, where it's addressed to, who, you know, and the statements and the bank statements, and some of these more online accounts are a little bit, they're either not formatted correctly or a little bit woolly in the eyes of people.
If
like
you're with
larger-
Monzo though, it's so good if you're a sole trader. And I have an issue with Co-op Bank. Co-op Bank block our bank account every week for suppliers, and then I can't pay anyone. But it lets all the boys buy DJ equipment and nothing. And Co-op
Yeah,
Bank
the-
is horrendous. Like I don't go with Co-op Bank.
Fair enough.
No, I've used Co-op Bank with
Hate them.
They're very slow, it's not with you, let alone other
yeah, and they're really hot on the fraud, which is great, but when they're blocking your bank account for making payments
Full
constantly,
I've used for 5 years. I wouldn't mind, you know, if it was something else, but
yeah, it's tricky. Yeah, so you know, keep looking. They're not always going to cost you money. Don't sort of rule them out as an option. And then really back down to basics is a spreadsheet, like you say. Google Docs is free. I find Excel works a bit better, but obviously there is a cost
Shelley
with
will
that
know,
sometimes.
I live in Excel a lot.
Yeah.
Everything, project
Yeah.
management, for databasing, for lists of whatever, and obviously for the financial side of things.
Yeah, you can keep it really basic if you know the thought of doing numbers. You don't have to be doing elaborate spreadsheets. I don't do elaborate spreadsheets. You know, just simply keeping things organised, ins and outs, and keeping copies of receipts. It might sound like a basic, simple thing, but it's quite easy to stuff them in your pocket or shove them in a little purse and then lose track of them. Taking a picture, you know, store it in an online file. There are data extraction apps, and you mentioned Dext. So basically what Dext is you take a photograph and then your bookkeeper or accountant accesses it with your accounting software and processes it from there. That's how I work with a lot of my clients, but I use something called HubDoc with Xero, which is free.
We used to use that.
Yeah, you don't like it.
Mine changed all the time.
We're a pain. So yeah, so again, there are free ones out there. I use HubDoc to keep costs down for my clients. But HMRC, I think everyone used to think that we'd have to keep reams and reams of papers and files and everything has to be backed up. I think it's a generational thing as well, isn't it? But HMRC are happy with digital copies. So, you know, you don't need to keep files and folders. You can take that picture as long as it's stored safely. You know, you can chuck your paperwork away as well.
Can I ask you a question?
You can.
It might be a question that everyone else knows the answer to. Could you just explain the difference between a bookkeeper and accountant and what the different roles are, or if they kind of cross over?
They do cross over, and then there are some very different things. Some bookkeepers are qualified more than I am to do tax advice and to do year-end accounts, but from a basic, a bookkeeper is the person that does the financial admin day to day. We get it all organised, we get it coded correctly, we can advise you on what expenses you can claim and not claim, and we just sort of help with that financial admin side of it. Then the idea is to present those accounts, a full set of accounts to your accountant. They will do the analysis of the numbers, and they will do the tax advice, and they will do the year-end submissions. No problem. It is one of those questions that's asked a lot. I did pose it on social media once, as somebody said about £30 is a difference. But that's not always true either.
So we've looked a little bit into some apps and we'll come back to those later. I guess one of the things that we perhaps need to have a think about is, you know, we've all had to learn over the years different things, and often we're finding that we're kind of learning as we go. So I guess whether people have got any tips on, you know, when people need to learn new skills around digital, what's the best way that they found going about that? Any suggestions on how to learn quickly?
YouTube videos. I've got really bad ADHD. I really struggle. I can't do spreadsheets, and there's some things I can't do. But I've learned so much from YouTube videos, and you can just watch the tiniest bit that you need to do something. And so I'm definitely not a coder, but I know how to do what I need to do, and I think that's enough. And like I will say, I'm definitely not is it jack of all trades? I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, but that's what I need to keep my business going. But it's also given me a lot of knowledge that if I need to get someone in as a consultant or something, then I've got the language and can sniff out the bullshit.
Basically. And I know I'm not on the panel and such, but I'm the opposite. I would just throw in a different perspective where I'd really struggle to learn from YouTube videos. I need to see somebody do it or need to talk to them, and other people might have different answers. And I'm a very much, when you're running what you're doing, whether you've been just starting out or whether you've been running it for years, know your limitations. And I'm a do what you do best. And there's certain things you get what you pay for. And so we didn't design our own website. I didn't have a website for years, and that was fine. Sometimes word of mouth and getting around and, you know, building a network is far better than having a website. We still don't have business cards now. I can't be doing with them. So it's just another perspective there that, you know, sometimes you can take a step back from the tech if that works for you in your business and your world, and carving in, you know, the payments, even at the beginning. Let's say it's, you know, several £100s to get your website built, and then, you know, £20 to £40 a month for it to be maintained by somebody else, then that's something I'd rather do. But it depends what your interests and your passions are, and what will save you time.
And if you have money.
And if you have money, yeah. Well, and we didn't have money, so we didn't have a website for a good 3 years, and it didn't do us any harm.
But you can do legally, and you can make a 10-minute website with your name, your number, and a picture, and that's all really website is. If you think about it,
and I think having somebody who wants to do that and who can guide you with that is a godsend, and that's why we run events like this, because I'd be like, you know, I'll go make some actual money.
That's an assumption with tech. I bet you get that all the time. With like, someone thinks it's going to be difficult, and then actually when you sit next to them and do it, it takes 5 minutes.
Having a human to show you the bits, the gaps. So quite often it's not the rocket science that goes wrong. Sometimes it's the easy stuff where it's like I've spent years trying to teach myself crocheting, I watched every YouTube video. Yeah, not great, where they haven't managed to film the hands properly, but you're getting all the commentary, but you can't actually see what they're doing. But then I went literally to a workshop, and within literally the first 15 minutes, I was there, I was doing it. And I'd spent years, I've got, the house is full of books about how to crochet, and it's like, did nothing for me. But just having an actual human who was like, no, actually, you need to put the yarn around this way, not that way. Boom, done. So it's that human bit, because tech's one of those things, and it isn't always the tricky stuff, but sometimes we think it is, and a lot of the time it's that confidence,
And
because
it's
when
the
you're doing
having
it,
time
it's
to
fine.
maintain it. One of the biggest fears for me, which is why we've gone with, don't beat me up, Rachel, we've gone with 192, 123 reg for years, which, you know, work for us. People will, like, you know, moan about that, but we could manage it at the time. It wasn't totally costing us through the nose, and it took my fear out of thinking, how the hell am I, on top of a million things I do, going to find time to maintain and upload and sort everything on my website? So thankfully now we've got people in the team who can do these things and adjust it. But if Shelley left tomorrow, I'd be in a right mess.
But you wouldn't. But you
Well,
absolutely
well,
wouldn't.
that's what I feel. Do you know what I mean? So it's
Because I think there's a couple of things. This is, I think, part of the mythology around
Yeah.
digital is that you need to be technical, and you just don't. So this day and age, I can't do any coding. If I needed to do some coding, I'd come and talk to someone like Claire. But for most things, you can do it. Just it's called a WYSIWYG editor, and it's what you see is what you get. So you're literally just popping stuff into fields for the majority of apps and platforms. So you don't need technical skills. All you need to do is work out how to navigate the thing, and whether that's going to a workshop to get someone to show you. But I'm the same. I find online tutorials. Once I know I'm using this platform, there's loads of online tutorials. There's free help, so you can just type in a thing. And the good tech companies haven't got a robot on the other end. They've got a human, and they might take a little bit of time to come back to you, but they will come back to you and you'll say, I'm working on this. I've got this exact specific issue. Send them a screenshot. Screenshotting, we can teach you how to screenshot, and they can answer your problem. So you just don't need to be technical. And the other way to learn how to do these things is just to start, to just have a go. You know, a lot of this stuff is done, you know, privately. Nobody will see if you mess up or anything. But the way to start to learn to do these things is always to start doing them.
And to have someone to ask if you get stuck.
Yeah, definitely.
So it might be that it's your mate. It might be that you've got, oh, my brother's quite good with tech, I'm a bit stuck here. For me, having that human is sometimes the bit, because quite often what I find with the people who come here for digital skills, particularly the ones who are very, very at the beginning of the digital skills journey, when something doesn't go right, they think it's their fault. It's like, oh, I clicked this thing, it didn't work. It's me, I'm no good with tech, and there's literally the shoulders are up here, terrified. And actually, it's like, well, when you click that link, it should have took you to a new web page, or that should have happened.
There's
and they
glitches
think
everywhere.
it's them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And actually, maybe it's the code that was wrong, and it's not you. But when people aren't confident in what they're doing,
Or it's a
they just
badly
assume it's
designed
them.
thing that's really hard to use.
And
But
there's a lot of badly designed apps.
Yeah, but we all need a Claire on our high street to help guide us. There's obviously not, unfortunately, a Claire on every high street, which there should be.
To be fair, the world couldn't cope with too many of them.
I think we could. But in the absence of that, just asking people around you, I mean, as a team, we're always asking people, each other, like, I've got stuck with this thing. And don't worry about it. It doesn't mean you're not technical or you're not good at this stuff. You just haven't worked out how to do that one little thing yet. And the chances are somebody might be able to point you in the right direction. So yeah, ask.
Any other sort of thoughts? We talked on a few bits there.
I just realised I didn't sort of mention, which is my bread and butter, is accounting software. And a lot of people do panic and think, well, there's no way I can manage that myself. Or, you know, people come to me and ask me and think I'm going to say straight away, oh yeah, you need a bookkeeper. Which is not the truth. Quite often I will say to people, actually, I think you could probably manage this aspect yourself. Let me help you set it up. Let me give you a few pointers, show you how to sort of maintain it, and know that there's somebody there, like you say, on the other end, if you do think, oh, I've clicked the wrong button or I've made a mistake.
Because I've asked you a lot of random questions. It's like, oh, it wants me to do this thing, or do I have to do? Because I know that I've got a human. So if I'm not sure what I'm doing, it's like, I'll just send Louise an email and Louise will come back and say, oh yeah, it's fine, it's this or it's that, or yeah, you're doing that right, or no, you need to do the other thing. And that's the difference.
It's good finding those people, isn't it, that you know you can sort of reach out to.
We've talked like here about, you know, it's that person, it's that human and different things. I wonder what people's experience in the room here is of that perhaps having gone, obviously here today, and we're talking very sort of plainly and openly, and we are here to be human beings, but often you'll go on, I'm assuming here, I'm curious to know if people have gone on digital courses or tried to train up in something, and often you go on that 2 hour or that 1 day thing, and what next? I'm just curious.
Well, does the Growth Hub has been hounding me and my staff, and it's got this new portal, and even I'm struggling to log on to the portal.
It's a nightmare.
And then they're hassling all my staff, and my staff, like digital inclusion, don't have laptops, don't maybe have data. They're not going to go and log into a site, and I'm so sick of everyone pushing people online, because I can't sit through a 2 hour Zoom. I'm like things. So actually, I think we need to talk about, it's not always the solution digital, like, and it's an easy route for people to go and get these contracts, because they can say, you know, I can collect the data, I can do this, but I don't think the Growth Hub should be doing all the online learning.
Well, I think
it should be in
I
person.
agree, and I think we'll come back to that. Is digital the right thing, and what else in a second? But with guys in the room here, I just wonder, is anything coming to mind for you on that, where to go best for digital skills training, and how have you found going for that so far? And it might be that you haven't done much of it, and that's why you come here.
My husband's about to explode
Yeah.
And that's the best thing I know is only use it when you need to use it.
Exactly.
And then you just get to pick it up, and then like you just get.
Yeah.
And I think Rachel's point is really, really key. Digital's not always the answer. So I can't remember, someone was saying they're worried that they should be on social media. And actually, I mean, most of our connections come through word of mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have, you know, good social media presence, but it's not necessarily going to be that's bringing people towards you. So you might find it's the same for your organization, and you just need a very low level, like a 1-page website, maybe, you know, one channel that you can just pop things on occasionally on social. That's probably sufficient just to get you going.
Every channel you have, every portal, you're giving yourself a new job.
It's a beast you have to feed.
So if you've got a Facebook page, and that's fine, and you're doing that, and then Facebook are like, oh, do you want to add WhatsApp? Do you want to add WhatsApp Messenger? You've now given people another way to mind you, which means you've now got another thing to respond to. You give yourself more admin with every single one. I delivered a workshop at a conference on Wednesday about how to set up a Facebook group. And at least one lady in there is now not setting up a Facebook group, because it's like, actually, no, you're right, that's totally not for me. Whereas this idea of come on, get on, it's like, if it works and if it's useful, and if you've got time to manage it and the skills to not drive yourself nuts with it, if you're creating a load of work for yourself, you've probably got off the path a little bit. So it's not always a thing.
Someone's taught you. I actually set up a Facebook group for trauma-sensitive mindfulness practitioners. And I surprised myself in offering to do it in the first place, and then I set it up, and then I thought, I'm not really sure what I'm doing. But I just said, is anybody in this group? Because all these people joined, and I'm like, does anyone want to help me kind of manage it? And I've met this amazing person that is a bit more technical than me. And between us, we're doing it together. So I feel like it's good to kind of collaborate with other people. And I agree with you, because I think for me, the learning in this situation in building my own business is, what am I actually interested in? Because I've set up and built my own website before as a sole trader, but this time when I tried to sit down to do it, I just felt totally overwhelmed, and it's not really something that I'm interested in. And I get frustrated because I know I'm quite good at knowing what I want, and I'm all right at writing the stuff, and I know what I want it to look like, but then I can't get it to do what I want. So I'd rather have someone else that I can then ask questions of, that speaks to me like a human being, and then I can grasp it if someone shows.
And doesn't charge the earth as well. I know we're like plugging Claire here, and absolutely, she's a great web designer and putting things together. Often you can get charged to the absolute nose for some of this stuff, and that's the other sort of bugbear on this. We might come and hear people's horror stories in a minute, but I'm just curious on my question a minute ago about how people have found other technical training. Have people found any training out there that they've gone on where that's related to IT development or using stuff where they've gone, oh, that was useful, and they've implemented it? Because I've never found it yet. You all learn as you go.
I guess you had to kind of register them, but Enterprising You was really good for me, because you had your own kind of like coach, so you had to kind of like register and stuff, but then you had your own coach, and you could discuss with them what you felt you needed, and then they've got their own portal with their webinars or whatever. But what they also have, they still have the in-person element there as well, because although it was like a market, like for instance, I'd look at a marketing webinar, there was also they didn't call them a host, but basically there was the person behind that you could still talk to.
Yeah.
The Enterprising You I found quite useful for my just getting the ideas from my business and stuff as well.
I
as
guess
well as
in
the
terms of
activities.
digital skills and digital training, I wonder.
Well, quite a few of the ones they did there was things like social media was one of them. I'm trying to think what other ones I did. But obviously
but
one of the
couple in there.
aspects they had was they have the digital, as in they had the webinars and they've got all of those, but they've got coaches behind it. It's kind of where I was going. But obviously part of that was the digital side.
And I think that program's still live. Again, it's a growth company funded thing, so people can look that one up. Anybody, anything else that they've gone up yet? Yeah, please do.
Just wanted to say that I think the digital and Facebook and the whole social media for me, it's been like a savior, because when I started Culture Bridge, it was the first time I actually have Facebook. I said, and it was because a friend said, you need Facebook because you need to show what you're doing and everything. So I started to have Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and this is what my friend suggested to me, and it was a nice for me to to learn everything. But since then, I am so delighted.
Yeah.
You love a good reel,
Do
don't you?
everything on my Facebook, and it's Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook I'm using. And like during the COVID, it was the first time just to join a group like yourself and actually to be home and sit in front of my laptop and just to join everyone and listen to what you're doing and feel like I am part of the group and I know what's going on. And I'm a bit lazy and I'm not driving, so it's a huge energy for me just to think how to get there. I want to, but I can't. I will go there. A minute before that, I changed my mind and said, no, it's a long way. So this, Zoom.
Yeah.
It was great.
Having that
And then
remote
I
access.
learned everything about Facebook, about different things. I'm always trying to learn, and I'm lucky because my son he just finished IT engineering. So anything I'm stuck, I'm saying, Miro, help me. So help me with the website, and it was like becoming a CIC.
Yeah.
We did online ourselves, both of us. So I think I'm lucky. I've got someone. Like I say, help me, and he can't say no.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's great. It's great to learn. I think it's the best way because
They've certainly become a lot more user friendly and accessible. Some of the apps and sites, haven't they? And what Shelley was saying there. And I think where you find one that works for you, it's like, oh, it saves you time, it saves you stress and
feel connected. For me, it's the thing I was worried, but I'm not anymore. Yeah, because it's like. It brought me here to meet you today. It was when I met Simone, I met you, I met the other ladies, and it was from Zoom. So I think it's a very good network and it helps in building connection.
It is in some ways, but there is a danger with Facebook because you can get attacked. And if you're doing anything in well-being or trauma, you are making yourself a public profile. So it is an amazing tool, but having ran a social enterprise for 6 years and having online when it goes wrong, it can be really scary and you're quite exposed if you're online. So no one's actually mentioned that.
Well, no, it's a really good point.
When you get bullied online, it's relentless.
Yeah, you've got to be careful, and we might talk about this again later on. What you use, what you do and don't say, how people can and can't, how you lock down certain things so that people can and can't either see stuff, do stuff, give you a barrage, or whatever it might be, or forewarned is forearmed, and having seen from somebody else's experience or having thought, what would I do in this situation, gives you a way of managing it.
And for someone who isn't being a woman on the internet, you're there for more attacks than
so many more.
And the MEN, every time I got an article, don't read the comments, there's so many nasty, angry men online.
It's something like 25 times as many abusive comments directed towards women.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if it's a positive article, there'll be some horrible person there, and that can take its toll, I think. And if you're working with maybe vulnerable groups, it's not, there's times and places, I think, for social media.
From who just on Instagram telling me don't try because we're helping this asylum seeking from the tiny hotel, and I usually put our friends from Britannia Hotel, and he said, well, you're doing a great job, but don't write Britannia Hotel because then there will be a target. And I said, thank you very much. So I stopped.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I was taking photos of like families and then children in them.
Yeah.
Although we have a form, they sign and everything, but then now I don't because they said it's not good to have.
Yeah.
It's like for me, the schools have gone wild and free. They've embraced Twitter in this brilliant way. But it's like, for me, as a complete stranger, so my girls went to Marple Hall, so I follow their school on Twitter. And there was a kid on there, does cross country, called Will something or other. So yeah, it's fine, he's a kid. But it's like, I already know his name. I know he does cross country. I know what school he goes to. It's great recognition that he's the fastest kid over a really long distance. But for me, as a complete stranger, I've got no business knowing this kid's details. They don't need to have that much level of detail in there. I don't. Schools and social media, that's a whole rant by itself. But it's. I mean, I've been on Twitter. It's like, oh, there's my kid because she won something or she was the fastest at stuff. Usually they call her Jade instead of Jada, so I'm not as worried. But I had to kind of, with the first one, I literally emailed the school and they're like, no, it's fine, we're allowed to. And it's like, it's great recognition, but I'm pointed out kind of exactly what's wrong with it. And they were like, then they sort of reviewed it a bit, so now they just put the kids first. It's like, it's not great, but you know, I'll just
and
have
it,
to let it go.
it is hard. I mean, we're all here trying to learn in our own way, but our next generation, the schools are definitely trying to show children how to use this stuff, and are introducing them with all sorts of like ways of learning it. I'll never forget my son having this portal that he had to log into, and they all had to have a profile and blah, 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 blah. And the teachers were posing questions, and every kid in the class could respond, and you could see very quickly who's vulnerable, who's not. I mean, horrendous.
Safeguarding in digital is a much bigger issue than people realise. And
I just, the
I
level
think
of
that's
detail
something.
that kids
So
are
law hasn't
sharing.
been brought up. So young people don't understand that if a 15-year-old sends a dick pic or a picture to another 15-year-old, they will be seen as a paedophile and get put on the sex register list. And I work with lots of youth clubs, and I don't think young people are aware of what they're doing online. And also your phone now, please stop and search you. They have access to your whole phone and all your data. So with some of the kids I work with, it's like, your phone is, be careful. And one of the groups I worked with, 2 of the kids have been put in prison because they were in a WhatsApp group and they made jokes and they listened to a type of music. So I really think digital education for young people and what young people are doing on phones is really important.
And also adult, if you're working with families. So just little things, it's like, because if you're not evil yourself, there's a lot of things that go on in the world that never enter our head. It's like, you'll see something shocking on TV and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know that was a thing, or I can't believe somebody did that. It's kind of, we don't want to freak you out, but actually the dark side of the internet, just like it is in real life, we wouldn't, but we don't have specific rules that say, don't walk down that dark alley. The advice we give to our young people and our children and our friends is, don't walk down any dark alleys. I saw this thing on Facebook about that app. Everyone delete that app and then go and do exactly the same thing on a different app. It's that level of kind of education that's quite important, but really as more of a general awareness. So if you're working with vulnerable groups, so people, if you think about domestic violence victims, digital can be used in a really good way. So like if one of my kids kind of, oh my God, she's not back, and I start doing the mum freak out thing that we do, because she's part of my iPhone family thing and we've got the Apple account, I can have a quick skim on my phone and, oh, actually, she's at her sister's, she's at my daughter's at the other end of the village. I can calm down. I'll still text her and say, where are you? But if I don't get the reply, I don't instantly ring the police because she's been out for 2 hours. She's actually at her sister's watching telly, feed it, and she's in a fridge doing whatever she's doing. It's useful for that. But if you think of that in a domestic violence relationship, it's like, right, you've left, you've packed all your stuff, you're in the car, you and the kids have gone. But actually, your now ex-partner can just go on his phone and go, oh yeah, she's at her mum's. Okay, straight round. All of that stuff. But if you're supporting people, there's things we can do with digital to keep you more private. But just knowing that it's a thing. And those are the bits that, I say, I love digital. If I'm awake, I'm on the internet. It's just a thing. It's what I do. But it's kind of having that level of safety and understanding, and the safeguarding is a massive thing that gets missed. But we could definitely help people around at least the basics of that.
And there could be things that we can do beyond today on certain digital topics, and we'll map and have a think about that later. And people might have certain things or cases or things that they want to know how to do, and we'll look at that shortly. We have a little bit of time left, so we've got a few more questions. And one of the things we talked about cost before, and I just was going to go back to the panel and think, you know, some tools cost money, or they start off free and then they rapidly, you know, subscription basis stuff can be a real challenge, or you know, there were things that people hadn't realized or just don't have the money to pay for. I wonder whether people have got any thoughts on how can people either fund what they're doing or avoid costs.
There's a great course I did in Community Arts Northwest about 10 years ago, and it was called Can Do It, and they taught us everything with open source. So open source is free software, so anyone can use them. There's no subscriptions, and they bought Raspberry Pis, which are laptops you can build yourself. And they taught me everything. They taught me a bit of social media, how to take photos, how to do this. And now the open source software sometimes isn't the most nice to look at, but it does what you need it to do. So that's my suggestion. If you ever stuck with a subscription, so for example, I got trained up how to do film, but I could never afford Adobe Photoshop, so I could never do it. So now I've got InShot on my phone, I'm back in the game. But it's annoying, the digital exclusion.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than being trained up on something that you can't ever afford to use.
And I think
that's so cruel.
The schools and the colleges, they kind of contribute to that. So if you think about things like the Adobe suite of Microsoft, you go to school and you get a free Microsoft account. So if you've got a kid who's at school, who's at college, who's at university, they've got Microsoft Excel, they've got Microsoft Word, they've got all of this stuff. Once you're not a student anymore, then Microsoft will be like, oh, if you want that, it's this much a year or it's this much a month. And Adobe's the same. It's like, I love Photoshop and I love Illustrator, but I'm not a graphic designer. I need those products and I use them, but I don't need them enough that it justifies me spending 50 odd quid a month on that creative suite. Whereas if I was actually all day, every day, I'm going to be here making digital art, that's a tool of my trade and I really do need it. But for the now and again that I need it, then moving from you bought it outright and now it's yours, but you won't get the new sexy features in the future, to actually, if you want to use it at all, then you're going to have to pay us 50 quid off.
It's also getting on the phone to them. I know a lot of people that have paid for Adobe and felt I'm trapped, it's £50 a month. You get on the phone, actually, I only use this element of it, I only use this element, and they can strip it back down.
Yeah.
So, you know, just ask. There's nothing wrong with asking. You can always tell them no, that's fine.
And sometimes there are alternatives, but the big companies are the ones, so everyone's heard of Adobe, everyone's heard of Photoshop, because it's like, oh, the industry standard. But actually, a lot of what I do, I can do on Affinity, and I bought that for like, I think it was £29, and that belongs to me, and it's mine all the time. So a lot of those features will be on another product, but they might not have the marketing budget so that everyone's heard of them.
So I was just going to say, there are often almost always free options for pretty much anything that you want to do, especially if you're a small enterprise and just starting up. So use the search term free alternative to Photoshop, free PDF maker, whatever it is, and it'll come up with loads of different options. Look at the pricing structure. So every platform app will have a pricing structure. They've generally got a free one, and sometimes, depending on how you're going to use it, you're only going to be able to use it for a week before you have to start paying. Sometimes, actually, with things like MailerLite, you're going to be able to use it until you've got over 1,000 subscribers on your list. So that could work quite well. But look at the price.
Is a software where you can send out emails.
It's like MailChimp, so it's a newsletter software. So look at the pricing structure and work out what you think you're going to need in the next year, 2 years, and which one of those is going to be the best for kind of the medium term, the short to medium term. I'd also say for social ventures, there's lots of free stuff out there. So Canva is free. Canva's a graphic design tool. For CICs or non-profits, you can get the professional version for free. You just have to send some evidence that you're a CIC.
And then you do get to tell them that you really are a non-profit, because they don't always understand.
Yeah.
But when we say on the CIC, I'm a non-profit, they're like, I'm sorry you failed, you're not a non-profit. And then you like email them back.
I had to get Vicky at Belting Wigan to sort ours out, because I just got rejected.
Well, CIC, Canva's fine for CICs, or education. If you work in education, they'll give you one. Other ones, like things like Google Grants, that you have to be a charity.
Google what was that?
Google grants.
What's that?
You get free advertising with Google if you're a charity. Totally free. If you're a charity, yeah, you get a chunk every month for certain keywords.
So
And
that's
then
if you're a charity.
if you're a charity, yeah.
Not a social enterprise.
Not
Just
CIC.
no, I checked it again the other day. They still haven't done it. So-
Okay.
But then the other thing you can do, so even if you've just got some very small costs, so things like, you know, sometimes you might be paying for an email client or Microsoft or something, you can tuck it into funding bids for projects. So if as part of the project, you need to be sending emails or you need to be communicating on social media, Zoom subscription, you can tuck in small amounts across different projects. And then as you get up and running, you can actually apply for grants that you can put it into core costs as well. So there's ways of funding those little costs, but there's also a load of free stuff out there that you should go for first.
There is a really good accounting software that is free if you have a certain bank account, so it's called Free Agent. And if you have a NatWest, RBS, Bank of Ulster or Metal, which I mentioned before, bank account, you get the subscription for Free Agent for free for the full term. It's not sort of free for 12 months. I know you said before that these like banks like Metal aren't great, but if you get a Metal bank account, get the Free Agent free, which is free, Metal, Free Agent is free. Then you open a bank with another one and you use that bank feed and use that for your funding bids. So you don't have to just be using that Metal bank account for a certain amount. You've got it, it's free. So that's a good way around it as well.
And I know we had this conversation before, and we can talk about who banks with whom sort of later, but we banked with NatWest for 5 years and we've never had to pay yet.
That's good.
And our turnovers, it's not peanuts, but it's not mega bucks either. And I need to go and check, you know, when we start paying business fees, but we've never had to in 5 years, so we'll see that one later. Oh well, you've thrown a few out there, and I think that point about tucking these things into funding, tucking it into your contracts. You know, in other sessions talk about full cost recovery, but the cost of the digital tools that you need to run and deliver a piece of work, a contract, a commission thing, are all costs to factor into the price that you put on your product, service, event tickets, or anything else. So just things to bear in mind. So we've just while we've thrown out a load of apps there, and I'm writing them all down because we'll squiggle them up and we'll explain what they are, and we might talk around some of them later. Just while we're in the mind of these apps and softwares and things, have you got you know, just very briefly, or one sentence, a digital tool that you couldn't live without and why? We'll ask each of our panel that.
What physical tool?
A digital tool that you couldn't live without and why?
Oh, it's like picking between your kids, isn't it?
It's got to be. It's got to be. In my house, it's got to be Find My iPhone. We've got a number of the family have ADHD, so we're constantly losing our phones. Rachel, you might be able to relate to this. So it's just constantly, and it's the one, you know, when you look at your most used apps, it's my number one, because I'm either trying to find my children, my phone, or my children's phones. So it's like,
and my phone can't take any more apps, so I couldn't even have an app to find my apps if I wanted to. But it's good to know these things are there. Anybody different, you know, what is that?
I'm struggling between two as well, but I guess for me it would be accounting software. So I use Xero, and I recommend Xero to my clients as a first choice. I did some coaching for myself the other week, and they're saying, right, what's your financial goal in the next 12 months? And there were a few of us, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure what I'm on at the minute, and trying to figure out. And I just went, oh, okay, that's what I'm on at the minute. That's the goal. That's reasonable, because all my data was there. That was my turnover. That was my profit. And if you're keeping it all up to date, you know there. And again, if somebody says you're going for a funding bid, you've got your figures there. You know how much things going to cost on your profit. So
which, sorry, I wasn't
Xero,
XERO.
Both Xero and QuickBooks, they are very good for if you've got grants and stuff as well, because you can do tracking through classes and options and all that. On Xero, it's tracking. On QuickBooks, it's classes and locations. But basically, you can split them between each of your different funders, and then you could get your reports off just by looking up that funder. You can also do, like on QuickBooks, it's locations. So for instance, if you do different activities or you have different shops, then you can show how profitable each activity or shop is. Xero has an equivalent of that as well. So which is particularly useful when you've got your different grants, because you've got to be able to get, it gets you those reports immediately for being able to monitor and say to your funder, this is how I've used your money.
And in my world, I have an Excel spreadsheet and lots of tabs. But you know, moving to these softwares. Yeah, you do. Yeah.
You can do it on Excel.
Yeah. And just choosing different things.
Like if that information is there ready for you, you know, quite often these grants come up and you've got right, the deadline's next week. Well, that's my funding bit sorted out, so I can apply the rest of my time into why I need this, why I can do this, and put your skills where they're needed most.
Did you get a chance to answer that question?
No, but I'd say I never buy any new things. I always buy refurbished phones, and so that's a Huawei P30. I think when they came out, they were 800 quid, and you can buy them now for £150. And I just think buy refurbished. It's like buying a second-hand car. You get really good tech now, and the latest product isn't always the best.
In terms of longevity and things like that.
And mine's my phone, I think.
Can I just mention one more tool
Yeah,
which I couldn't live without, and it's a shortcut, and on a PC it's Control Z, and on the Mac it's Command Z, and it's undo. So not every application has an undo button. So sometimes you'll be like, oh, I've just deleted or whatever. So Control or Command Z, really, really useful. I use that many times.
And I guess there must be a sheet online. There must be a sheet somewhere that's tells you all your controls. That would be great, actually, because you know what you know, don't you? And if we all learn on a need to know basis, it's not until there's like, is it Control H to like put a hyperlink in, and there's a Control
It's
N?
just so many, it's hard to remember.
But, well, there's certain ones I can remember and that I've used all my life, but then there's all these others that I realise exist that I've never used.
Use them all the time.
Control daily. Or the other one, I'm just going to get on it, is Control F, which is find. And so if you're scanning a website or a page and you know you need to find a certain piece of text or see if a certain thing, you know, contact is in there, Control F.
You've got to create a PDF or
one.
Something I always struggle with, and moving into the business world, using it more on phone calls, is the phonetic alphabet. Useful now. So on my desktop, I've actually got a PDF on my website if anybody wants it. Is my husband's a graphic designer, looking and he's done backdrop is just the phonetic alphabet and what word I need. So on the phone, like Alpha Romeo, it just doesn't come to me.
You don't put like a stupid word.
Oh yeah, I've done that as well a few times.
All the time.
So it's different phonetic word. I mean, I worked for the police or behind. I've worked in the accounts for the police for a while, but the police alphabet here, Alpha. It's different from the US ones anyway, so you know you're not always going to be the same.
No, at least I can think of a word rather than going mummy.
Make it all. So there's a couple of things that are sort of broader questions really. They're less about practicalities and more about sort of the state of things. And so one of the thoughts and questions I've had is around this notion of tech and digital tech, and actually, you know, we're all using this stuff, but there's a world out there that calls itself the tech industry and the digital industry, and you know, there's a lot of, I don't know, support, awards, stuff out there that brands itself as, you know, tech innovators, women in tech, and I just wondered, do people see themselves as women in tech? You know, if we actually went back to basics and looked at things, a lot of us could be classed as women in tech, but we wouldn't. I'm of the opinion that a lot of us would not see ourselves as that. Perhaps Claire.
I think it sort of depends where you are and who you're with. I mean, it's like I'm in this room, I'm probably one of the techie people. If you take me to a completely different room where if I'm at a web development conference, I'm the Muppet who only does this, this and this. There's always someone in tech who does stuff that's really so far beyond what you can do. Everyone has different levels. So I think because like as a CIC, you have to, well, why are you a CIC? What's the benefit you're trying to bring to the community? And I've got two. One is the digital exclusion. So less ranting about wheelie bins and more teaching people how to sort of navigate the council's website. And the other side is increasing the diversity in tech, and not necessarily, oh, we need more women, or we need more Black people, or we need more what have you. For me, the thing with tech, it's not that there's particularly too many white men in it, they're just not diluted enough by everyone else. So if you go back and you think about, I mean, tech, if you go right far back, to tech sort of like in the 80s and 90s when your Apples and your Microsofts came up, it kind of changed and it turned into something else. And anytime you get too many people who are the same, so if like, I mean, I gave an example. I've got like a lad who's on a Kickstart scheme with us called Declan. He's 19, he's a young guy. If he worked here and there was 10 of us who all worked in this business, so don't worry, who all worked in this business, and we were all middle-aged women, we would probably be, it would be a weird environment for him to be in, because everyone else would be a middle-aged woman. So maybe we'd be, oh, menopause jokes, or whether or not Zac Efron, is he too young, or whatever weird things that a load of middle-aged women together might come up with is no less weird than the weird blokes in the 70s and 80s when we were growing up with their weird inappropriateness. If you get too many people who are too the same, you need to dilute. It's like Vimto's great, but we don't drink it neat. You've got to dilute it or it's a bit wrong. And tech's like that. Whenever you get a big enough mix of people, people start to think about things differently, because if you're all there and you're all the same level. I mean, I saw a thing for like a digital pregnancy test. So you take the pregnancy test, you do the peeing on the stick, and then it will send out a message that tells people whether you're pregnant or not. There will not have been a woman in the room when that was pitched, because we would all say, why the F would you want that? Even if you're the sort of person who shares everything, I cannot think of a single instance where that would be a great idea. But that's the thing, we can all look at that and go, who the hell would want that?
And this, I suppose that's part of the question I'm making, is the sort of,
if we were all 40-year-old blokes, that might seem like, oh, it's an amazing idea. It's that dilution and it's that thing.
and
But
it's, how do other people on the planet, do you see yourself as a woman in tech?
I think if you actually really get to know lots of these tech companies, they're sales companies or marketing companies, and all they're really doing is looking at spreadsheets or data. So I think we've been misled with these tech solutions. I think WeWork was a really good example. It was pretending to be a tech company. It was just a landlord. And I think we throw around this word innovation all the time, and we think tech will be the innovation. But actually is, like you said, quite a limited worldview. And there's not always, you don't need a tech solution all the time. There's really good, you know, the Victorians came up with really good solutions for things that we don't need a digital bell for, a digital camera. And then I really like my colleagues with their Geeks for Social Change. We've done some podcasts about some issues too. What I find is quite a lot of techie people are maybe on the autistic spectrum, and they build systems. So they're very used to building, it's either this or that, and it's very binary. And they don't understand maybe more creative people like us or lay people, and they actually need us. And one example is my colleagues, who are awesome, very forward thinking, and made a flyer for people to, simple to use, how to use our product really simply. And I tried to work through the flyer, and the first thing was, it's a QR scanner that you're meant to use on your laptop. How do you do that? And they just have made these assumptions. And then I got sent to this other website, which was GitHub, and I kind of barely knew what GitHub was, but I was like, you've lost everyone. And they kept making these easy to read things, but they're getting the language. They're used to using this language, and it's, you know, like legalese and language like leaves people out. So I think maybe sometimes we need to bridge those gaps between those people who think like that and the people who think like us.
It's certainly not something we're going to solve today, but it's something that we can have to think about as part of conversations in a second. Any last thoughts on, do you see yourself as a woman in tech?
Again, I was going to say no, because I'm not an innovator, but like you say, it's maybe a generational thing as well, because I'm an old millennial. I've sort of brought up with the development of all these things that have all happened really, really quick, and I've sort of kept up, and I can navigate on a very basic level. But I think that helps, like I say, bridge that gap between people who are absolutely terrified or not involved. But I'm certainly not to your level of technology.
I think it's hard now to do anything, particularly in sort of like a business, without using some level of tech. So whilst kind of, I would say, yeah, I'm a woman in tech, I think to be a woman who doesn't use tech, you're going to struggle, but it's going to be
We've
really
often
hard.
argued this with characters like Rachel's described there, and others more in the private sector, where, you know, like Rachel said, they need us, but there's rarely the space to never the twain sort of shall meet.
And I think that idea that, oh, if you're good at tech, that, oh, you must be dead clever.
Yeah.
And obviously people are then like, well, yeah, I am dead clever because I'm a techie. You
We
get
often
that
try
bit,
and,
don't
we
you?
often try and, I don't mean bring them down a peg or two, but bring them into the real world by saying, you know, technology is a vehicle. If you explain that, you know, technology might be a vehicle to get something done, but the thing that's being done and the change that's being made is the
Well, there's a
tech
quote
or
on
the
the wall
innovation, really.
up there that's by Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Technology is just a tool.
Exactly.
You've still got to be trying to do something, and that's where being human comes in. The idea that actually I need to know what's going on with my business financially. The fact that I'm now using the Xero app and I now use HubDoc to scan me pictures, and that sends that to Louise, who does whatever Louise does. Once it's gone, but whatever Louise does that involves tech, there's still that process, there's still a point to it. And I think that's the bit, we can use technology in different ways. And for me, the problem is that we herd people onto systems without the help to do the system. So that's kind of my big bugbear with it.
Systems get designed without ever involving, you know, they talk about user testing and, you know, beta versions of this, that, and something else, but they rarely authentically get tested with the genuine people who were ever
Going back
use
to my
them.
previous life as a nurse, the trust I worked at changed the entire IT system. It was completely different, and we had trainers come in and deliver sessions to every single person, and I would sort of say, right, okay, so when I'm preparing, when I've taken the blood and then I do that, and she's like, no, I'm not here to talk about that, I'm just here to show you how the computer works. It's like, but I need to know how that's going to work in that life. And I think that's what we say, people like us are handy because you can go online, you can see how to use Xero, you can follow it, but I like to show people how to use it for their business, and I think that's really helpful.
Make things relevant. So there's definitely lots of that. Shelley, any thoughts? Do you see yourself as a woman in tech when you've been running your digital life for this company?
No, I use tech. I think to be in tech, I'd have to be someone like Claire who creates stuff. Although I guess we do create some degree of things, but I feel like I use tech to make the stuff rather than make the tech.
Yeah.
I think Claire's point about, you know, there's different levels. There's always somebody who knows more than you.
But I think when there are, and I'll just put in 2 plugs at once here. So Flourish the other year won a Northern, well, we didn't win, we got highly commended, to prepare, but we got a highly commended, very shiny award as you know, Innovation Award of the Year. You know, and as Flourish, we're not a tech company. People might not see us as an innovation company, but I would exactly say that we're a social innovation company. It's just people don't talk about that or necessarily see us in those terms. So it's just sort of having a think about how we've all been saying here, using this as a tool to then create the change that we want to see is key. And people will not put themselves forward for certain programs, courses or awards because they think, oh, that's not me, or that's not what I am. That if you look behind the surface of what they're actually offering, what they're trying to do, what the thing is for, there's a good chance that it is for you, and that having you on that whatever program, event or whatever it might be will bring so much more value to what's happening there than just having a bunch of people who say they're in tech in the room. And on that point, it's just reminding people, whether they're up for these things or not, the Northern Power Awards, I know Simone's coming, she's been talking about these lately, but the deadline for those is on Monday. And there's various categories. There's different kinds of awards out there, not just for women in tech, but for all sorts of things. And sometimes being aware of these can be helpful for whatever, raising your profile, connecting with other people, and putting yourself in a world that you hadn't realised you were in. So, you know, the world of innovation, or the world of leadership, or the world of, you know, whatever it might be. So I just highlight that. I know we've got a lady who's joined us here to talk about something, I won't say completely different, but talk about a digital tool. I'm going to invite her to say a little bit shortly. I've just got one last question. Sort of sowing the seed for some of the conversations that we might have this afternoon or beyond today, is that, you know, the Flourish Network has got lots of people in it who are using tech, doing tech, have all navigated their own journey into their sort of how to use digital tools for them. Some are in social media, some are in web development, some are in all manner of other things. My question is, you know, if we could if we could wave a magic wand, you know, and co-design something that would unlock the potential of our network, what could we do? So given we've got these people that do things, people with this knowledge, some train people, Some are happy to talk about their examples and case studies. I just wonder, is there anything we should be doing more as a network? We can run events like this, you know, that might be one thing. We could do things like the How To Festival and build more into that creative and digital zone. We can lobby for stuff. I don't know. Anybody, any thoughts? Yeah, if we could wave a magic wand and work smarter, really, as a network around digital skills, digital tools, the digital agenda. Any thoughts? I'll put you on the spot on Friday. We'll probably do some snacks. Go on.
That PlaceCal, like if it there was loads of research in it before lockdown, and the landscape's changed a bit. But PlaceCal, if you go on Hume, it lists every single event and venue. So from 8:45, it lists the coffee mornings to the food banks to the late night events, and there's nothing doing that in a local area. So everyone always says, I don't know what's going on in my area. But the trick is that we've designed it to link to your Google Calendar. So say you did a coffee morning every Monday at a specific church, but you moved it to Tuesday, but the internet is still telling everybody for years that it's on Monday, you will lose your group really quickly. So we've designed it so it's connected to your calendar, your Eventbrite. So if you change anything, it's all relevant. But the other part is that we could map all the groups. So we could use the tag, I was talking to the deaf charity, we could use the tag deaf events, and anything to do with anyone being deaf would be in one space for them in online. And it's about taking back our information and learning how to use our local networks.
And is that it would be great if there's times happening to get a little demo on PlaceCal or have a look at it on a couple of laptops.
Yeah.
What's it called?
PlaceCal.
PlaceCal,
like calendar.
CAL. PlaceCal. PlaceCal. And
Place.
Calendar.
Very techy.
Not the fish.
Cal. And then the company,
Not the fish.
the social enterprise web was actually called Geeks for Social Change. And
They're
they're these
fab.
really forward-thinking tech people, and they've come up with some amazing tech solutions. So there was a race resistance lab, and they're really forward-thinking about how we can use data and tech for the good of people. So I'd really like check out their studio and some of the work they do
And
as
we'll
well.
definitely have a chat more on this. The things we'll need to know later are, you know, can you just go on it and use it? Is there a subscription fee
No.
in certain areas? Do you have to pay to kind of collaborate and do the stuff? Are people in place like yourself available to go into communities and just nail it over a series of sessions? I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I've got 2 days a week, and I've got all my other skill sets. I'm offering that out. But what we're trying to do is get the council or larger funders to pay for the pages.
Yeah.
But we're going to do it free for community groups.
And didn't you say you've got warm spaces mapped as well? Is that
We could do this.
Yeah.
What has happened is we did loads of research before lockdown, and the whole landscape has changed. And I've been working in communities for 10 years. And like coming out of lockdown, there was a lot of hope. But this year now, everyone's shocked and everyone's stuck. And people aren't doing events, and people have changed the whole way they communicate with their groups. So we've gone onto WhatsApp groups, which is good
WhatsApp group, yeah.
in some ways, but then people aren't using Facebook in the same way. People using Facebook groups are not Facebook events. And there's, as I say, there's nothing to replace Facebook events since I hate Facebook, but I'm still having to do a lot of my business stuff on Facebook. But we need to maybe move away from Facebook, because overnight Facebook could change their rules. And it's happened with a Black History group I knew about, and they were collecting all their history, and then overnight Facebook decided their group didn't exist, so they
You
lost.
just lose everything, don't
You
you?
lose all your data.
connections and your...
Yes, I don't think we realise how kind of feeble Facebook is. If they decide to ban you, you've lost everything, your network, community.
It's actually a good tip. If you do have a Facebook group, make sure you get their contact details separately as well, because like you say, if that goes off, they can just turn it off.
Yeah.
No
And
way
then
to
we can
connect
report you
people.
for anything. So before you know it, you can have your page shut down.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
The important bit is get your emails.
Yeah.
They belong to you.
See if we can share those. We'll come back to that PlaceCal conversation later. Any other quick magic wand thoughts before we ask?
a couple of things just coming out of this morning's discussion? So the first one, something around how to make or deal with the downsides of the internet, you know, especially for women-led organisations dealing with trauma, or you know, working with people who might be targeted. So something around that would be really interesting. But also just to the point that keeps coming up about how human help really helps, you know, with some almost workshops where you bring your things along and there's people here who can just practically show you how to do things.
It's funny actually,
business related.
Yeah, something you mentioned before, it's something I'm looking at doing is starting up something called the Indie Bookkeepers Club. where literally we all go and meet somewhere at one point. Everyone's got sort of accountability to get their accounts done, and people on hand to answer and help any questions. So I think
we've probably got, I mean, you'll have your own networks, but we've probably got a good 3 or 4 trusted contacts in finance who
to support it. So in answer to your question, is probably sort of a network or somewhere to find out who are those people I can go and ask a quick question for. It's not going to cost me. So I know people are scared to ring an accountant. Oh, she's going to charge me 50 quid for asking her a question. But you know, who can we just but that's it. And I think if we can get that out, that you can ring me up, you can send me an email, I'll answer your question. I'm not going to send you a bill for that straight away.
That's
definitely. So I think that could be something good.
And there may be a way of, we do have quite a Facebook group that is quite active and it evolves, and there's all sorts in there. I've never done it because it's just another job, but I've got people in the network, and there's probably people in this room who are like, well, we could do this, or we could do a Facebook Live on that, or we could, you know, once a week or once a month, we could have a troubleshooting topic. There's nothing stopping us doing those things, and we've done Twitter chats and God knows what before. That's probably more my area. I like a Twitter chat. Facebook thing, I use it, but I'd have some probably help around that. But there's, depending on what you already set up, we can signpost people to you, or we can bring people into, you know, where we've already got a bundle.
You're also happy, aren't you? Because I mean, I've done it before, and I've kind of fallen off a bit on Facebook, to be honest. But I used to put my how-to videos on your site.
3 minutes and more. I was actually 20 minutes.
But but yeah, you're quite open to that kind of thing, really, aren't you? So.
Okay. Claire, any last thoughts? Wave a magic wand. What could we be doing? I know we started, you know, when we met you, right? Oh, right. And so we commissioned you to do 4 workshops, and that was a good start for 10. Some of that learning we're now trying to weave into the how-to.
I think for some people, it's figuring out what you want to do and what works for you. So if you want to, actually, I want to build my own website, or if at the other end it's like, I don't want to touch the website with a barge pole, I just want it to exist, and every time something happens, I just want it fixing. Figuring out where you are with that, because there isn't a wrong answer. There isn't a, oh, actually, yes, everyone should have this and everyone should have that, or you definitely need the other. It's figuring out what works for you and what you can comfortably maintain and what you're happy with. Because having another thing because it will help the group and ruining your own life, it's not where it's at. Because we, as a group, we know enough that actually us being well and healthy and our well-being, having people dogpiling on you at like 2 in the morning, and which happened to one like local sort of social enterprise. Somebody had said something, and then they were targeted by another group who had quite strong feelings about this, that, and the other. Then some of their trustees literally signed off and had nothing to do with the business, because literally overnight on Twitter, all this stuff had happened. People started panicking, and it really freaked them out. So if people have got an idea of, right, this is the worst that could happen, this is the amazing stuff that you can have, and so you can make like an informed decision of what you want to do, and then figure out what's the best way to do it. And it might be for you to pay someone else to do it. So say it was a website, it might be pay me to do the whole thing. It might be that you come along and I teach you how to do it yourself. It might be, actually, I'm just going to do it myself, and when I get stuck, can I talk to you? Or it might be, no, I'm fine, I'm just going to do that myself and then just wing it and see what happens.
But it's great that you've got that flexibility, that you're prepared to work with people in those ways. Lots of people, when they come across people, it's like it's an all or nothing scenario. So I think what you're suggesting there is really good, and it's made me think, just as another little job, that we've had people before come and run sessions on, you know, developing your digital strategy. You know, what today is, there's an element of that, but coming up with what you described there, developing your digital strategy, where you look at all the different elements of what you're doing and work out what's best for you or your organisation in that time. We can look at little bits of that this afternoon, but there's we had a woman called Viv Slack who came and ran some really good sessions on this stuff for us that we could probably bring in again, or we can create our own, I want to call it a canvas, I don't know what to call it, but where we can help people map this out in their own way, and we could probably design that between us that people could then use and work out, cover off what they know and what they've done and how they went about it, and what they then need help with, and what they haven't even looked at or realised, and forewarned is forearmed, as the months and years.
People say, oh, you need to be on TikTok, you need to be on TikTok. It's like, you probably don't. For some people, TikTok will be absolutely amazing, but for other people, it will be like, what's the point?
Yeah.
It's got to make sense. And digital marketing, it's marketing. It's supposed to help your business. It's not crap, I've got to learn a new dance because it's Thursday. That's not what it should be about. So it's got to work and work for your business, because people forget, they get into, oh, I need to be on this, that and the other. But actually, marketing is about driving your business forward, making yourself profitable, doing the stuff that gets you in front of the right people or that shares the right story. And that's the bit that gets lost while you're busy trying to learn the latest TikTok dance. It's like, for some people, absolutely jump on it. That's where your audience is. That's where you're generating your content. Happy days. For other people, it's like, actually, I just need one web page. So when people find my Facebook page, they know that I'm real. And it's got my contact details on it. And that's all I need. Whereas for other people, it's like, no, I need a booking system. I need this, I want that, I want the other.
Well, certainly, I've jotted some bits down. We can look at it later another day. But in terms of your digital needs, you know, there's the social media needs, there's your finance needs, there's your staffing or HR, there's your project management needs and tools, data storage, and invariably other bits. But if there's these elements to what you do, we can then help navigate where I am, what I need, what I don't know, what I could use as a quick win, organisations that I could go to when I need more support. There's a tool there that people could then use, at least, punching it.
Just thinking, because I'm using Twitter a lot, and do we have something like digital connection platform? Like the same, sometimes I go to your Facebook and I see all the people, I see others doing the same thing I'm doing. Just without anything, I get the idea.
Yes,
it's the answer for me.
Yeah.
Looking
what, often if you're not doing it, looking at what other people are doing, and then either mirroring it, picking bits that might work for you and testing and trialing. Yeah.
So I'm doing something like ARC, Stopper ARC Cat Museum, the ARC, on like Saturday, Sunday, and all days of the week they have a theme. So Sunday is yellow something, yellow Sunday. That's hashtag yellow Sunday, and then we all share a yellow picture. Is it the sun? Is it a flower or something? And then we'll all write about it. And then it's, even if you're home and you have this, it gives you some like boost, and then you feel good. But in this case, if we share like anything for what we're doing, then I will be still part of this group. I will remember everyone, have their connection. I will be connected.
And we could definitely later on draw different hashtags that people use for different things to be able to connect into stuff. Ours is usually invest in women change makers. That's a bit of a long one, but invest in women change makers brings up all sorts of stuff that we've done at Flourish over the years. There's proper good, hashtag proper good, there's some of the proper good stuff that's going on, so we can have a look at what might be some of the link hashtags around stuff like that. Conscious that we've got our lady online who's going to come and tell us about Matchable. We thought while we were talking digital tools, we'll hear a little bit more about PlaceCal hopefully later, but we'd love to hear about Matchable, because I know Lauren got in touch with us or Shelley has been having conversations with Lauren about this. Is it mentor matching?
It's volunteer matching. So volunteer matching. I met Lauren. Hi Lauren, thank you for being so patient. Are you still okay for time? Yeah, sorry, we have
all good for time, no stress at all on that front.
So I met Lauren a couple of weeks ago, and she talked me and some others through Matchable, and I just thought it'd be really interesting to introduce you all to her, because there's so much potential for increasing your capacity and learning through this volunteer matching program. So I'm going to hand over to Lauren.
Is it put on speaker view, and then people can see a little bit better? There we go. We'll attempt to twirl you around, make you big.
Nice.
If everyone needs to move, so you can see Lauren.
The volume will work okay for people.
Amazing. Okay, hi everybody. I'm Lauren from Matchable. Thank you so much, Shelley, for spinning me around so I could hear what everybody was saying. That was really, really interesting. Actually, it's really like having such interesting discussions, especially around, are you a woman in tech? So Matchable is a tech for good platform, but I never really feel like a woman in tech, even though, you know, we are using tech every day. So yeah, thank you so much for having me here. But yeah, I met Shelley a few weeks ago. Because what we do at Matchable is we connect skilled volunteers from startups, scale-ups and corporates with short-term impactful volunteering projects at organizations like yourself. So charities, social enterprises, CICs, and also for-profit purpose-driven organizations as well. I know you've been talking about, I think somebody mentioned earlier, you know, sometimes you just want to ask a question, or you just want a little bit of advice about maybe a skill or an area that you're not kind of fully aware of, or you don't have professional expertise in, and that's exactly the kind of thing that Matchable can really come in and help you with. So I'm just going to explain a little bit about kind of who we are and how we work, and how we could potentially support some of you with, I'm sure, some of the amazing social ventures that you have going on. And then I'll just open the floor for some questions if you guys have anything that you want to ask. So Matchable was actually incubated by 8 of the UK's largest charities, including WaterAid and the British Red Cross, because they recognised there was this quite big gap in the market in terms of skilled volunteer support. So I'm sure a lot of you know, a lot of companies offer their employees paid volunteering leave, but more often than not, this isn't actually used kind of to the best, in the best way that it can be. So that's why we were founded, to sort of create this gap and link skilled volunteers who have, you know, a range of professional expertise, be it marketing or tech or PR or whatever, with organizations who are doing amazing things, but potentially lack the resources and the support to be able to kind of do those extra little bits and really elevate their work to the next level. To explain a little bit about our business model, so we are a completely free service for you guys, for any impact organizations, as we call you, and that's actually because we sell our platform to our clients. So because of things like ESG policies and, you know, a focus on employee well-being, and volunteering obviously feeds really nicely into those things, our clients actually pay us for access to our platform, which is amazing because it means we can offer our service completely free of charge to you.
I was just going to say, ESG is one type of impact measurement sort of framework that corporates often use, if you wondered what that was.
Yeah, sorry, I should have explained that a bit. Yeah, so a lot kind of so a lot of our clients and kind of big corporates, but even, you know, smaller startups and scale ups, obviously people are realizing that they actually need to do better in the world, and actually just making a profit is not really good enough now, and people have to be, you know, giving back to the environment, to their community. There's a lot of focus on, as you say, ESG, but also companies more generally are offering volunteering as a benefit to allow their employees to give back and actually to increase their positive impact on their local community or their global community or whatever it is. So most of our volunteers on the platform have around about 16 hours of paid volunteering leave a year that they're able to commit to these short-term projects with any kind of charity or organization that we have on the platform. Now, when volunteers sign up, just for kind of reference here, that we have around about 13,000 volunteers on the platform at the moment, coming from at the moment we have about 70 clients, so a range of different companies. They all have really varied skill sets. So as I said, marketing, tech, PR, admin, whatever you can kind of think of, I'm pretty sure there'll be a volunteer on the Matchable platform who has that skill set. So when volunteers sign up, they tell us basically what kind of volunteering they want to do. So they tell us what their skills are, they tell us how they want to use their volunteering time, and they also tell us the things they're really interested in. So is it sustainability? Is it health and well-being? Is it working with kids or working with animals? That kind of thing. And that basically means that we can match volunteers to organizations that really align with their preferences. So also as an organization, you'll be matched to volunteers who really care about what you're doing, but also have the right skills and expertise that you need. In terms of how we can work with you guys to support you, I'll kind of send a few links as well to Shelley that she can share with you at the end of the session as well, if you have any questions and that kind of thing. But essentially how it works is you guys just go away and think about any areas of your business where you could use a bit of extra support. So this could be kind of very skills specific. So, you know, marketing strategy or content creation or web design, UI, UX design, or it could be more general. It could be mentoring, or it could be you want to hold a focus group, you know, with people, let's say HR leaders, and get all of their feedback on your product. Or it could be something like you just want loads of people to user test your website, or, you know, review something that you've created. When you kind of think of these projects, you just submit a very, very short project submission form to us, and then we upload those projects onto our platform and we tag them in exactly the same way that volunteers tag themselves. So your organization will have all of its cause tags. So, you know, as I said, sustainability, health and well-being, global equality, etc. But all of your individual projects will also have the tags that reflect them. So the skills you're looking for, the seniority level of volunteer that you need, and also the time commitment that you require from the volunteer. As I said at the start, we are a short-term volunteering platform, so all of our projects do have to be 16 hours and under, but obviously you can get multiple volunteers, you know, to help you with each project. So even if you have a project that's just 4 hours, you could have 10 volunteers matched to that and give you 4 hours each. So it's not a kind of definitive number. Does that kind of make sense to everybody? Does anybody have any questions so far about how it works or the kind of things we could support with?
If you got matched up with whatever it was that you were looking for, it could be an individual one-to-one thing, it could be a group, focus groupy thing, it could be something else. I guess, how long do people wait for a response, and is it all done online?
Yeah, so it's all done through the Matchable platform. And obviously we have the algorithm on the platform that presents, you know, the right projects to the right volunteers, as it were. So when volunteers with certain preferences and interests sign on, they'll see projects and organizations that align with those. But we do also do a lot of kind of outreach. We have our newsletter, we post a lot on our socials. So volunteers also being shown, you know, new projects and new organizations in a variety of different ways.
And are there many, because I don't know the scale of the thing, is there much going on in the Northwest or in Manchester? You know, what's the range of what's happening in our patch currently?
Yeah, for sure. So the majority of the volunteering opportunities on the platform are remote. We're kind of a remote first platform, partly because we were founded in COVID. So obviously remote was all the rage back then. But we do also more than happy to do any sort of in-person volunteering opportunities as well. At the moment, the majority of our volunteer base is London, but just because that's where the majority of our clients are based at the moment. But we do have lots of volunteers in Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, I think some in Hartlepool, and then obviously some down south as well. But there's a really, really expansive volunteer base, and our client base is growing, you know, very quickly. And we are really looking to expand our kind of organisations into other areas of the UK. And also,
you've got again, loads of people and organisations potentially, and knowing what other things they might be linked to. There are other things like this, but yeah, learning and seeing what's going on. Anybody else got any questions, any thoughts? Yeah, a little nosy. I think the challenge with a lot of these things, and don't take this away, it sounds great, is that we'll come across lots of these sorts of things and they never quite work, or they never quite knit together, because either there's a cost barrier, which obviously there isn't here, or there's a geography barrier, or there's, you know, people have what they want and they never find the people. They've never found the people they need, because the two wants and needs are different. But it'd be great to pilot a few opportunities through this and see how things stick. And it sounds,
and I guess the good thing about it is you can just have a go, just put your projects up there and see if it flies. And from what Lauren was saying previously, you can put as many projects up there as you like and see what uptake there is. Obviously you need to be able to manage them and give the time that's required to the volunteer to enable them to do the job. But in a current world, we don't need to have, unless it's an in-person volunteering opportunity. If we're thinking about, say, digital and technical skills, we can do most of that remotely, and it could be that there's a project that you give somebody to work on, so they could free up a bit of your capacity, or it could be that they help you with your strategy. So there's all sorts of different angles. It's kind of, I'm sure everyone's got a list, as long as their arms multiple times, of things they need doing. So you could just put a few things up there and see what sticks and see what help you can get.
Yeah, also just to cut in there, Shelley, we do work very closely with our organisations. We, you know, obviously we want to help you guys as much as possible. We are a social impact startup. That's kind of, you guys are the reason that we exist, to try and elevate your work. So if there are particular things you really need support with, we can send out tailored outreach to volunteers who we know are interested in your organisation, but also have those skills. So that's like an email that goes out to, let's say, 1,000 volunteers with the relevant skills, which just has your project on it, and kind of advertise it that way as well. So we're definitely not one of those kind of platforms where you just put on some projects and you never hear back from us. We really want to work with you guys to ensure that you get support that will help you elevate your work. And we're always here to kind of jig projects around if you want to remove projects or amend things, or if you need extra support, maybe you have a deadline that you need to kind of hit. We're always here to support, and we have a really dedicated impact team who are here to support you on your journey as well.
Cool, brilliant. And what's the website? I'm sure it's very simple, but
is it matchable dot?
Yeah, we are matchable.com.
We are
We
matchable.com.
are matchable.com.
So I'll-
Matchable.
I'll share it afterwards.
It's not a dating website. Everyone's always like, "Oh, are you a dating website?" Like, kind of.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks, Lauren. And thank you for your time, and thanks for waiting so patiently. I think we've been sat here for a while, so we'll have a breather and sign off. But thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Shelley. If it's okay, I'll just send you an email. Maybe you can send out to everyone who's on the session today, just with a bit more information and my Calendly link as well, in case anybody has any questions or wants to chat a bit more.
That'd be brilliant. Thanks, Lauren.
Perfect. Thanks so much for having me, guys. See you later.
Well, I'll just say a quick thank you very much to our panel for today. Obviously, Claire, Louise, Shelley, Rachel, and everyone's sort of thoughts feeding in. We'll take a good 45-minute breather and meet back about 1-ish, just to, you might find us putting the tables together and all sorts to get ready for the afternoon, but we'll have some afternoon sessions. We'll stop recording now for people who are listening again.